So the rest of the exercises here for the rest of this chapter all use the image module and all use this particular image in order to have you iterate through the image pixel by pixel, starting at the top and ending up at the bottom, in order to create a new image that basically fulfills whatever requirements they're asking us to do here. So in this case, for number 6 here, write a program to remove all red from the image. So that all, if we go up here and go back to our table of contents and go to this section here of the chapter, everything that you need to know how to do these few problems is all described on this page. So if we look at this, grid here. This grid represents essentially that picture where each of these boxes is a pixel. So what we're going to do is we're going to write 2 for loops that are going to run through each column and each row. So what I mean is the first for loop is going to say something like 4 columns in range image width, basically. So 4 columns in range image width. So for each of these columns, going from left to right, then we're going to say in the next for loop for each row within that column. So what we'll do is, in this case, essentially we start up at 0, 0, and so we go 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 03, 04, 05, etc. until we get to the end, and then we go back up to 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, etc. So we're going through each column of this. We wrote a for loop essentially to look at each column of this image. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. That's all these columns here. And within each column, we're writing a for loop to look at each row. And functionally, what that looks like, if I pull back up our exercises here, functionally what that looks like is going to be this. All of our programs that we write for this next section here is going to be this. So for column in range, and we'll get to this, but for all columns in range width, so all the columns across the width of the image. So if you imagine that this picture is split up into little tiny columns, we're going to essentially iterate all the way across. And while iterating all the way across, we are going to iterate all the way down each column. So essentially this for loop, this nested for loop, this double for loop, is going to look at each column, and as it looks at each column, when it gets to a new column, it's going to go down the entirety of that column, row by row. So it's going to start up in this corner, and then go down, hop back up, go down, hop back up, go down, hop back up, go down, and so on until it ends up in this bottom right corner here with having iterated through and checked every single pixel is what this is going to do, this double for loop. So the rest of what we need to do is just utilize the image module in order to get access to this stuff. So what we can do is we can start by importing image. We're going to need that. That is the module, that is the library that we're going to use in order to do everything that we need to do here. And I'm going to call our image here Luther, because that's the name of the image. I'm going to have Luther be equal to, from the image module, an image object. So what we're doing here, and I'll type in the name of the actual image I want to grab, is we're telling the image module to make an image object out of this file. So it's going to take luther.jpg and turn it into an image object as defined in the image module, and make that into a Python object with a variable name of Luther. So now anytime we want to do something with Luther, we can do Luther dot, and then whatever we want to do with Luther. We can set pixels within Luther to be equal to some new kind of pixel, for example. So that creates our base image of Luther. And then I'm going to also create a new image, because we're going to take the base image that we have grabbed here, and we're going to essentially create a new blank image and copy over pixels as we change them. So this new underscore image variable is going to be equal to, from the image module, an empty image. And again, if you don't know how to use the image module, we have all of the documentation for that on this page here. So please go and utilize the documentation for this stuff here. So for example, all of these things, the image class, the image object that we're creating, is going to take all of these methods. So we can use these methods here on our Luther object that we created here. So Luther now can have all of these methods run on it. So for example, if we wanted to see how wide Luther was, we would do Luther.getWidth. To see how high it is, how tall it is from top to bottom, we would use Luther.getHeight. To look at one particular pixel of Luther, we would do Luther.getPixel, and then inside of our parentheses add the arguments for the column and the row of the pixels that we want to look at. Similarly, on the basic image class, the overall image class, we can call empty image in order to get an empty image, which is what we're doing here with our new image variable. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. I know a lot of you are having troubles utilizing the image module. Really, this kind of thing is, we're going to dive more deeply into what classes are and what objects are towards the end of Unit 1. But really, you need to start getting practice with looking at documentation like this and trying to make sense of it to see what modules that we're using actually do. So we've pointed you to, for example, the Python documents website before. For the image module, all of these methods here for the image class, and then all of these methods down below. Down below, maybe above. Yes, here we are. All these methods up above here for the pixels are all the things that you're going to need to use in order to complete these assignments, or sorry, these exercises for this chapter. So if you're dedicated to completing the exercises for this chapter, you really need to look at these two charts of methods. This one for pixel class, the pixel object, and this one down here for the image class, the image object. Okay, so again, anything that you make that is a pixel, so when you substantiate a new pixel here using this method on the image module, you can then take that object and use any of these methods on it. And the same thing goes with the image object. Once you've created an image from a file or created an empty image, you can then use these methods on that image object. So I know that's a lot. Really do try to reread this page here, this chapter 8, page 8. It really is super dense, but it's really important that you really try to read it and try to internalize this stuff, because everything we do from here on out is going to be essentially utilizing methods on classes. So we've done a lot previously with just using functions that aren't attached to classes, but because all modern programming languages are really object-oriented, means that which means that they rely on using objects that then take methods. So using objects with methods is going to become super, super important. Okay, that being said, let's hop back over the exercises again. Okay, so we're creating a new empty image here, and we need to make it the same width and the same height as the original image of Luther. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two variables here, width and height, and I'm going to set those equal to image, I'm going to set them equal to Luther, which is the name of our image object, dot get width, which is going to return an integer that is the number of pixels wide that our Luther image up here is. And then I'm going to run similarly Luther.getHeight. Okay, so these are methods, get width and get height, that are referenced in this documentation back over here that we can use on this Luther object, because the Luther object is an image object. So that sets width equal to the width of Luther and height equal to the width of Luther. Now, when we create an empty image, I want to point out, look at this example usage for empty image here. It takes two arguments. It takes a width and it takes a height. So make sure that we're using that. So we're going to create an empty image of width wide and height tall. So that's going to create our new image for us that we've named new image. We're also going to need to create a window object, which we can just call WIN for win. Now that is image.imageWin is the class declaration for that, the method that we're going to run in order to create that. And I don't know where exactly that's said in this page, but if you look at the examples, they will do that in all of their example stuff down here. They'll create a win file. So we want to make our window exactly the same width and height as everything else so that it can display it correctly. So there we go. We now have our image intake, our image that we have stored in a file, taken into our code and stored as a variable. We've gotten the width and the height of that stored as a variable. We've created a new image of that width and height, and we've created a window to eventually display that image in for that width and height. Now we have our for loop that we wrote 5-6 minutes ago at this point. But this for loop is going to run through for the width and the height of our images. So it's going to, if, for example, our Luther image is 200 pixels tall by 400 pixels wide, it's going to go 4 columns in range 400 and 4 rows in range 200. So it's going to go from 1 to 400, and every time it goes through one of those, it's going to subsequently go through 1 to 200. What I mean is that it's going to go 1 1 1 2 1 3 1 4 1 5 all the way up to 198 1 198 1 199 1 200, and then it's going to start over again at 2 1 2 2 2 3 all the way up to 2 200. And so it's going to iterate through that over and over again until it gets up to 401 402 403 400 195 400 196 400 197 400 198 400 199 400 200, and at that point it's finished with the for loop. So that's essentially what this is doing when we're going through that. It's going through every single section, every single pixel of the image methodically, one at a time, starting at the top starting at the far left column and going down through that column, and then going to the next column and going down for each row of that column, and going to the next column and going down for each row of that column until it gets to the bottom right pixel of the image. So now that we've done that, we can think about what we actually need to do, right? So in order to manipulate this picture, we need to, now that we've set up our for loop, put inside the for loop what we want to do, which is we want to get from Luther the current pixel. So the current pixel we're looking at. And so we can do that by getting the pixel that is at call, comma, row. So this function call here, this method call on the get pixel method of the Luther object is going to get the current pixel at call row, which is going to be whatever pixel we're currently at in our for loop, from the Luther picture. And we're going to need to set that into a current a variable that we can manipulate, right? So pix equals Luther.getPixel column row will get whatever the current pixel we're looking at is. So it'll store it as an object, as a variable that we can manipulate. And then we're going to need to get the color values from that pixel. So again, if all of this doesn't make any sense, it's because you haven't read through the examples on this page in the textbook carefully enough. Okay, a pixel is made out of 3 different color values, a red, a green, and a blue. So ultimately, for each of these, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set up a red, we're going to want to set up a green, and we're going to want to set up a blue. Now we have methods that can do that. So for red, we have on the pixel that we created, this pix object, pix, which is our variable from up here. We're going to call a method called getRed, and that's going to return in an integer between 0 and 255 the current red value. The same thing for getGreen. The same thing for getBlue. So that will store in red, green, and blue our current values. Now we don't need all of those current values because in the case of this image and this problem, our goal is to remove all the red. And so to do that, it's really simple. All we have to do is for each pixel, instead of getting the red value from that pixel, we want to just set red to 0. So now that we have those stored in variables, we can create a new pixel separate from the pixel that we're looking at. We want to create a new pixel by instantiating it using image.pixel. And image.pixel takes three variables, 3 arguments. It takes a red value, it takes a green value, and it takes a blue value. Again, somewhere between 0 and 255. So in our cases, here we just want to simply use red, green, and blue because that's what we've named our variables here. So we're saying to the image module, create a new pixel with 0 as our red, whatever the green value from the pixel we're currently looking at to our green, and the blue value from the pixel we're currently at to our blue. So we're copying over this pixel that we've gotten from our for loop to a new pixel, except that we're changing the red value to 0. That's all we need to do. That for loop now will create a new pixel for every single pixel in that image. But in order to actually get it to appear in our new image, we need one more line. And that is, we want, with our new image object that we created earlier, we want to use the method setPixel. And if we look back over here again in our methods, we see that setPixel takes 3 arguments. It takes the column you want it to be set at, the row you want it to be set at, and the pixel that you want to set it to. So in this case, we want to, and we're adding this to our new image, not the original image. We're not modifying the original image. We're creating a new image and copying everything over, but without the red. So for our new image, again right here, new image, we want to set the pixel that is at the same column and row as the pixel that we've been working with to this new pixel that we've created up here, up here, that has 0 for red, the same green value, and the same blue value. So that's it. That is our for loop that's going to run through this image. Now, we have 2 quick other lines that we need to do, and we'll do this for all of these, and that is new image, draw, when. So that's saying to new image, draw yourself within the window that we created earlier, and then we just need to add the same old when.exit on click that we use for our turtles. Now when I run this, and I'll save this, when I run this, what's going to happen is down below we'll see an output of the same Luther image but with all the red strips, so it'll be kind of bluey greeny. So we'll wait for that to finish running. And it takes a minute because it is running pixel by pixel over thousands of pixels here. So it's kind of the most processor intensive thing that we've done so far. But there we go. That is it, the blue and green image. Now I'm not going to, in future exercise descriptions down below, I'm going to go through the rest of these to help you figure out what you need to do for them, but I'm not going to redo these parts or my for loop. Okay, all of that is going to be pretty much the same for all of this, and I'll mention when it's different, but we're going to use pretty much the same stuff for all of the rest of these exercises. The only thing that we're going to change is what we're doing inside of that for loop. So now that we've made our for loop, we're good there. We're just going to change what we're doing inside of it. All right, I know that was a lot, and I know this was a long one, but the rest of these exercises should go a little bit quicker now that we've gotten that out of the way.